If you follow these 3 steps, you'll get girls so fast it feels illegal. There's 3 simple things that anyone, even a virgin, can do to get girls extremely quickly. I was a shy, insecure kid who couldn't start a conversation with anyone to a confident, outgoing guy who was traveling the world, getting girls to come home with me in sometimes less than 5 minutes. The first principle is so important that without it, you'll struggle to get a girl to even want to have a basic conversation with you. So to illustrate this, I want you to imagine 2 people who look identical physically. They got the same face, the same physique, the same style of clothing. But one person, when you interact with them, they're extremely awkward. They won't make eye contact. They'll look down and away at the ground. Their shoulders are kind of hunched over. They're kind of just like moving around in this weird way, and they're not smiling. They're just like really looking uncomfortable and out of place. Versus the other person who, when you interact with him, he looks you dead in the eyes. He shakes your hand with a firm handshake. He asks you how you're doing. He's smiling. He's asking you questions about yourself, just being an overall nice person, moving around this party, smiling, having a good time. Which person do you think girls are going to be more attracted to? It's obviously the guy with confidence. And this is that first point that is so essential. Confidence is going to do so much more for you than you could ever imagine. There's a couple things that you can do to develop it that's going to allow you to go after all the things you want while staying true to your masculinity and being the best version of yourself. So, the first thing that you can do is progressively overload confidence. The same way that if you were to go to the gym, you wouldn't start with 500 pounds on bench press. This is like cold approaching Sydney Sweeney or one of the famous Victoria's Secret models. You might be nervous to do that, right? But if you just start by talking to someone or anyone, that cold approach is going to be so much easier. You could even start with an old person and just say hi. And you can progressively overload your confidence in many different ways, because confidence just comes from repeated wins. And if you're trying to apply this to getting girls, you're going to need to start talking to girls and start talking to people in general. You need to be a good social conversationalist. That is pretty much all that game comes down to, just being a dynamic communicator. So if you want to be able to get girls and you want to be confident in social situations, you're going to need to progressively overload your confidence in many different ways. And you can also build confidence outside of just social situations by building yourself up as a man, building trust in your word, doing disciplined acts on a daily basis, doing things like reading, meditating, journaling, cold showers, going to the gym, the list goes on. But the more that you say you're going to do something and stick to your word, this is going to allow you to build trust in your word and trust in yourself that when you want to do something and when you say you're going to do it, you go and do it. So when you see that girl that you now like and you want to go talk to her, you're just going to say, well, I'm going to go talk to her, and then you go do it. And this is how you're going to build that confidence and that upward spiral in your life that's going to allow you to be that confident guy that we described earlier, who's just dominating every social situation, getting the girls that he wants. And if you want to develop the confidence necessary to get your dream girl in the next 3 months, book a free coaching call with me down below. Confidence is absolutely essential if you want to get girls, but there's some guys who are super confident who girls are absolutely repulsed by. That is why you need to have this next trait, because it will determine whether you pull people in like a magnet or push them away like the plague. I actually made this mistake myself about 9 months ago after hitting an all-time high in my life, starting a successful business and making a lot of money. On top of the fact that I came from an all-time low and had failed multiple businesses, the success I had was so much sweeter. And I let this get to my head. I became very arrogant. And when I went to Sweden with that sense of confidence and more arrogance than anything, I actually repelled more girls than I attracted. This happened to me quite a few times before I learned my lesson. After one time talking to 2 girls, one of them I liked, and I was just really saying how I was the man, and I was trying to like win her over, and something I preach against now. And it ended up that, we got into like a little argument, and the night went so much worse than if I just probably talked about her like I preached now, but if I also just left the conversation once things weren't going well. Because I wanted to prove myself, because I had that ego and that arrogance, things just went so bad for me. And once I flipped the switch and applied what I'm about to teach you now, I all of a sudden started getting girls like it was out of style. There is nothing worse than being confident but ruining it with arrogance, having no social intelligence, no empathy, no interest in the other person. This is not going to get you any of the success that you want, and this is why charisma is that next element, that next trait that's going to take you from being confident to absolutely magnetic. And to demonstrate this, one of my mentors is not very attractive in the traditional sense, yet he has the best charisma and charm that you would ever come across. And this is why he can pull girls with ease, all because of his language, his communication. And he gets more girls than anyone else, although he is not traditionally attractive. So that is how important charisma is when you want to get girls. And there are some steps that you can use to develop it yourself. So one of the most important aspects of charisma is going to be eye contact. If you hold eye contact in a conversation, this is going to take you to a very charismatic level, and it's a small trick that you can consciously start working on. And just like we mentioned earlier, progressively overloading, there's many different charismatic traits that you can apply that will make you charismatic. So if you start with one of the ones that has the most impact and is very simple, by just holding eye contact with someone, you're instantly gonna level up your charisma. And the more things you do that are charismatic traits, and you can consistently add these to your repertoire and your behaviors and mannerisms, you're just gonna become ever more charismatic. So the basics is just eye contact. Hold eye contact nearly 100% of the time when someone else is speaking, and about 80% of the time when you are. And anytime you feel like you're putting too much pressure on the other person when you're talking, you can just look aside at equivalent to their eyes and just kind of look away for a second, gather your thoughts, and come back. And this will break that pressure of the conversation, making it not so intense. But when the other person's speaking, you can nearly have 100% eye contact. And this is really going to show people that you're attentively listening to what they're saying, giving you a very charismatic effect. And now, if you're always running out of things to say, this next trick will absolutely revolutionize your conversations. See, conversations are as simple as talking about the other person because that is their favorite subject. Everyone loves to talk about themselves and the things that they're interested in. So if you can get that person talking about themselves, continue the conversation with open-ended questions with an overall positive attitude and optimistic regard, encouraging them, making them feel good about whatever it is they're saying, and not passing any judgment or negativity towards them, this conversation is going to flow on forever because this is what everyone loves to talk about. So if you can be that person for someone else, you're going to come across as very charismatic just by applying these two simple tricks between eye contact, talking about the other person, and using open-ended questions to continue that conversation, making sure those open-ended questions are on that topic, furthering the depth of it. Like if you're talking about say you ask someone if they're going to school and they say they are, and you ask them what they're studying, then you follow it up with, well, what made you want to choose that line of study, right? And then you keep going and you keep going. And this will get someone really talking about themselves, and this will make you very, very charismatic. With confidence and charisma, you'll get plenty of girls, but adding this last element will put your social life on easy mode. I want you to think, if you're at a black tie suit party and you come in wearing beach clothes, you're wearing shorts and a button-up t-shirt that has flowers and beaches on it, whatever, do you think you're gonna fit in at this social gathering? Do you think people are gonna treat you a little bit differently just based off of the way that you're dressed? They 100% are. The way that you present yourself in many different forms between your physical appearance and the way that you communicate and think and behave is very, very important. If you want to get along with anybody, being a social chameleon is really going to benefit you. And let me give you an example to demonstrate this. So in my mom's hometown where I went to, Sweden, they're a huge, huge hockey team town. That is the big sport. That's what everyone goes crazy about. It's like football in America. So they're obsessed with hockey. So what did I do when I went there? Well, I learned a little bit about the team. I learned about the players who have now made it to the NHL in America and who they're all obsessed with and their idols. And I have little things to talk about. So even though I wasn't the biggest hockey fan before I started going there, I've now grown to like it. But the thing is, if I was just there and they started bringing up hockey and I was just like, oh, yeah, I don't really like hockey, I'm instantly just going to be kind of put down in their eyes. Whereas if I'm just like, oh, yeah, I love hockey, bro. I know they got some crazy, amazing players from this town. It's so cool that from this tiny, small town, it's produced X, Y, Z hockey players. They're like, holy shit, this dude knows hockey. He knows the players. He knows our idols. And now it just keeps you a little bit more on edge. It's also, there's another thing that I read from a book about charisma called tribal wear. This was kind of the example I was using earlier with coming into a black tie event with a beach shirt and bathing suit. Which is, if you wear things that are similar to the other people, you're naturally just gonna kind of fit in and accept, and they're gonna see you as one of them, and they're gonna wanna bring you in. But if you stand out so much, if you're so different, if you're so controversial, it is not gonna help you in your social situations. You wanna kind of be a social chameleon. This doesn't mean that you can't have your own thoughts, opinions, and be unique. But it just means that when you're engaging with people, you try and be like them in some ways. Like you try and take on the things that are very accepted for them to quickly build rapport with you. That word rapport is the most important thing that you can take away from this, because in building rapport, this is how people form deep, meaningful connections and actually will get to like you insanely quickly. So that is all the advice I have for today. If you want to attract the girl of your dreams in the next 3 months, then book a coaching call with me down below. We're going to get you absolutely dialed in and get you the girl that you deserve.